Each week in this portion of the show, we turn to some of the biggest names in food, from Tom Kerridge to Monica Galetti, Raymond Blanc, and this week my guest and I share a special bond. We've both won TV cooking shows.
The winner of the Great British Bake Off 2016 is Candice. Well done.
Never, ever thought I'd ever even get on this, and I'm standing here now with this, and they said my name, and that means more to me than I think anyone will ever realise. It really, really does.
Oh, I'm just watching your reaction. You've got a tear in your eye.
You've literally tipped me over the edge. I haven't even started.
Oh, no, we've got another half an hour. Are you going to be all right?
I think so.
Oh, look, Candice Brown is here with me in the studio. I saw your reaction when we played that clip. Immediately, you took a breath and a tear came.
It doesn't get old. It does not get old. It doesn't stop surprising me, and yeah, it's still very emotional. I still can't believe I did that. And when I hear that, and you can hear me kind of talking, it was as raw. It's as raw now as it was then. It's still that complete shock and just amazement that I did that. I did that. It's just...
It's an incredible achievement. And how has it changed things for you where you were before that win? Because that was 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we're, 5 years later?
Literally.
So how has it changed everything for you?
Oh, I mean, not at all. It's exactly the same. No. I literally, when I think about the things that I've done, the people that I've met, the opportunities I've had, I have to take a big deep breath, and I kind of go, my goodness. And I start reeling off things like I've written now 2 books. I write for the Sunday Times. I have travelled the world. I've done food festivals. I've met my heroes. I got to meet Dame Barbara Windsor. I have met the most amazing people. Also, you put me alongside people like Tom Kerridge and Raymond Blanc and things like that. You can't name me alongside those people.
Yes, we can. We just did.
But I'm so lucky to be able to call people like Tom my friend now, who I've looked up to and I still look up to, and he's my pal, and it's just incredible. I'm able to do something I love so much as a job, and I don't think I'll ever get bored of it. I just love it. I'm so lucky, and I just love it, and I want to learn more, and I want to absorb it, and all I think about is food all day.
That we share.
Yeah,
definitely. That
day.
we have in common. Now, I have not been able to watch MasterChef. If I see the logo, if I hear the music, I get butterflies in my stomach. Are you the same with watching Great British Bake Off?
Absolutely. And when the new season starts, and that little bit of music, that Bake Off music, I know what they're feeling. I know how that walk-in feels. I know that bit when you're putting on your apron and you're trying to tie a bow and your hands are literally shaking and trying to sort of keep composure from the waist up, because for me, below the bench, my legs were going doing an Irish jig for sort of nerves and everything. And it's just knowing that feeling, but it's also like a warm, familiar hug. I loved every second of it, and I owe it everything. I loved every second of it.
Well, look, we're going to talk about the book in a moment, Happy Cooking, and I know you've got a tremendous recipe for us, for people to try tonight. But before that, I just want to talk about the last 18 months, the pandemic. How's it been for you?
I mean, it's been interesting.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. When you just think, what's gone on? And someone described the last year as almost like a time void. Because when people go, last year. No, it wasn't last year. It was the year before. Just this weird, what happened last year? So me and my brother took on a pub. So we bought a pub together, beautiful little pub, the Green Man, in a tiny little village called Eversholt. And it was about a year to the day, and we mentioned these words, we should have a year anniversary party. And I reckon 2 days later we were shut for the first lockdown. And that first month, not having enough money in the bank to pay our staff wages, going, what are we going to do? And then that continual, Okay, so what do we do to survive? Literally, that was it. What do we do to literally keep our heads above water? We did takeaway. At one point, it was me doing all the cooking, all the food in the kitchen, my brother doing the washing up, and his girlfriend dropping food off. Like, that's what we did for a few months just to keep going. Of course, we built an extension because, I mean, why wouldn't you when you've got no money coming in and the pub's shut? We did that, and then we were lucky. We reopened, but again, dealt a massive blow this week because of everything that's been going on. The pub's now shut again for 10 days because of contact
Contact
yeah,
tracing.
and it's just heartbreaking. It's again, it's to the point where and you go, what are we going to do? But we get our heads down and we keep pushing on. It's been a lot, and to say that it's been a struggle is an understatement. There's been times where I was being scraped off the floor by my brother and his girlfriend. Mentally, it was the worst year of my life, and many other reasons as well. But I also managed to get that on paper. Something that I've always turned to and always done is food and cooked, and whether it's thinking about it, whether it's playing with a bit of dough, whether it's pulling something apart and then trying to reconstruct it, or and that's kind of what I did to plod on. Some days I completely just went, nope, I'm not doing that. Other days I pushed on and whacked out sort of 5-6 recipes, but it was tough. It's still tough, and it is for so many people. We are one of the lucky ones though, because we were able to stay open.
You've talked a lot, very openly, very candidly, about your mental health issues. You've talked about PTSD, chronic phobias, ADHD, and of course, mental health has been a huge issue over the pandemic. We even see it with highly trained athletes. We've had the Osaka over Wimbledon. Simone Biles has just dropped out of the Olympics. I mean, it's dreadful that there's so much of it about, but do you agree that we are getting better at talking about it, addressing it? Yeah, there's some silly voices out there in social media that we can just ignore. Perhaps they're just seeking attention. But do you think that we're getting better at the way that we can deal with people's mental health?
Absolutely. I think for me, before Bake Off, I was struggling with my mental health. I have depression, like I say, PTSD, chronic phobia, and then last January I was diagnosed with ADHD, and it kind of ties a few things together, and a few bits now make sense. But it's something I hid. I hid on Bake Off, and when people were being a little bit mean and some of those rubbish voices were being horrible, and I'm thinking, you've got no idea. And I was a teacher, in a secondary school. I was a head of year. I also looked after a special needs department, and was telling students and telling these young adults just to be themselves, and it's okay not to be okay, and you only have one you, and be proud of that. Yet I was being a fraud because I was hiding this. And it was actually a conversation I had with Frankie Bridge, who again I'm now lucky enough to call one of my best friends. She's incredible and a real advocate for mental health and that discussion about that. And she was able to allow me to feel a little bit brave and speak about it for the first time. And I've now been very, very open. It's very open and quite brutal in the book, because actually, okay, things were getting hard to hide. And actually, no, we need to start sharing that and actually telling people, if you have got an issue, please talk. Please talk. It's okay not to be okay. There's no perfection. There's no Instagram perfection. That's not real. But actually what you have is okay, and it's okay to be like that. Just keep talking and opening that, because last year showed so much that mental health is becoming more and more apparent, taking on various different forms. People that you would never expect. I get it all the time, but you look so confident. You were so confident. Yeah, a lot to do is with the makeup and the lipstick and the clothes, but actually you've got no idea kind of what's going on. And actually what I'm able to do is still function. I'm able to function. It's just stuff you don't see kind of afterwards, and that's okay. And it's having those conversations and opening up those conversations. And last year saw people gravitating towards the kitchen. People were forced to take time, forced to slow down, to stop. The world stopped last year, and people started doing things they might not have done. And a lot of that was food, and people started going, okay, it's a little bit of a process, a little bit of therapy. And it's something I've always done, and it's people just taking things that they can seek some sort of solace or therapy from, or make themselves feel better, or taking a little bit of self-gratification. Like I do it all the time. I make something, I give it to someone else to get that feeling of, oh, I can do it.
It's like giving someone a gift, and the
Absolutely.
pleasure is in watching them
Yep.
unwrap it, isn't it? And when
Yep.
it comes to food, it's putting that plate of food in front of someone and just watching
Yep.
them eat it. Hopefully,
It's-
get a good reaction.
Yeah. I mean, if they gag, then you go, oh no, I didn't make that anyway.
But how much of the being in the kitchen is important to you? I think a lot of people listening will think that being in the kitchen can be quite a stressful
Absolutely.
place to be. You know, people who are time poor, people who are, you know, struggling to get the ideas to put food on the table for the family. So how much of a solace is the kitchen for you? You spoke about therapy before. Is that how you see it?
At times, yeah. Sometimes I literally just have this need to cook or to bake. And a few years ago, when sort of the depression, I started to understand it a little bit more. My friend would ring me, my best friend Anna would ring and say, "What are you up to?" And I'd say, "I'm baking." She'd be like, "Right, okay, I'll be over," because she would know that was, I was in the kitchen. I was baking more than I knew what to do with, because I was able to do stuff with my hands. I was able to be all consumed. And with the ADHD and things like that, I'm very kind of flitty. My friends and family call me Bumblebee. They ask me to do something and I go off and do 10 things in between and then have to be reminded to do it. And then I might do it tomorrow. That's kind of what it is. But then you see me in the kitchen and it's like this all consuming and it's just different. And just having that, I don't know, that focus of maybe turning a load of things into something big. And even if it does taste rubbish, you've maybe enjoyed the process of it. You've learned something from it. And if it looks rubbish, just eat it with your eyes closed. Say it's supposed to look like that, all right? It's deconstructed.
I love that, deconstructed. Look, let's talk about food, because again, I'm I think like you when we were talking about the introduction. When I wake up in the morning, I look forward to a meal. I think, oh, later today I'm going to have this or I'm going to make that. It's sort of one of the something to look forward, like a little treat.
Yeah.
What do you like with your own food? Before we discuss about the book, what are your go-to recipes that you think this gives me comfort? This is what I like.
Yeah, it can be anything. I mean, straight away. I mean, my first book was called Comfort. So people go, "Oh, is there any sort of healthy recipes in there?" And I'm like, I mean, some of them have got fruit in, so those cookies have got raisins in, so it's pretty much one of your 5 a day. But I love big food. I love all the flavours. I'm not, like I say, I would never class myself as a chef. I don't do the finesse. But what I do love is just throwing things in, using that pepper that half of it's gone a bit soft in the fridge, cut the soft bit off and whack it in. And in the book, there are chapters in that you say about time restrictions or just not having the ideas, and there's bits in there's a chapter in there which things can be done in half an hour, so easy dinner that can be substituted for different bits and pieces. There are 2 for 1 things, so maybe doing a roast lamb or a pork on a Sunday or a Monday, because I mean roasts aren't just for Sunday, are they? And then using the leftovers
Not for
to put
foodies,
into
they're
a
not.
pie.
No.
I mean any day,
Or
any day of the
gluttons,
week.
yes.
Yeah, literally. Breakfast, yeah, it's fine. And just using the leftover meat to put into a pie and things like that, and just actually giving people those ideas that actually don't have to stick to one thing. Look in the fridge, see what you've got, and just have a play around with it. And that's how I learn. Some things work, some things don't. The ones that didn't work don't end up in the book.
Look, we were talking just as the news was on. I mean, there are a lot of recipes in here, and there's a lot of savoury recipes. It's not all baking things,
No.
which is you know your first book. That's what people wanted,
Yeah, of course.
from you. Just one bake off, and of course, but there's arancini, little risotto balls. There's loads of really mouth-watering recipes. How difficult is it to amass? I mean, there must be like. How many are there?
I think there's
Do you know?
just under 100 in there.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
How do you go about getting all these together? And of course, you need to cook them. You need to make sure they work.
Right, and that's the thing with the first book as well, and with this one, I wrote every single recipe and I tested every single recipe. I mean, some of them were tested 3-4 times. If it was any more than that, then I'd probably leave it, because actually if it's difficult for me and I'm not enjoying it, then I'm not going to put that stress on other people as well, because food and cooking shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't be a process. It shouldn't be difficult. You shouldn't have to go to 10 different shops to get all the different ingredients or order special Himalayan salt direct from the Himalayas. Like, just use what you've got in the cupboard kind of thing. But yeah, there are ones in there that just, it's what I like and it's what I do. So the fried rice, for instance, I will eat that maybe 2-3 times a week with different things in whatever I've got in the fridge.
Fried rice recipes are brilliant, aren't
Just-
they? Because
yeah.
they are the best way of
Yeah.
getting rid of that one courgette that you've got left, and
Exactly.
you're like, what am I going to do with that?
A few dry spring onions, just take the dry
Yes.
bits off, chuck them, cut them up and whack them in.
And in a way, that's so useful for people to not just get a recipe
Yeah.
where they get the ingredients to make the recipe and that's the end of it, but actually teaching people more about how to use leftovers
Absolutely.
is so vital. Because
Absolutely.
when I speak to people who don't like cooking, they're like, well, I don't know what to do with things that are left over, and then I ended up throwing away too much food, and then I feel guilty about throwing away too much food. So actually those little tips are all
Yeah.
important.
For sure. I mean, if you kind of like it, it should be okay with something. I mean, I'm not saying put things like chickpeas in a cake or something like that. I mean, chickpea and
Have
apple
you tried
pie.
it?
I mean, by accident.
Have you
probably.
tried making, sorry, we're going to veer off real food geekiness. Have you tried making meringue with chickpea water?
I have. I couldn't get past it. It really made me feel a bit weird.
But did you successfully? Because
It wasn't great.
Okay.
It wasn't great. A couple of the other bakers, Tom especially, uses that a lot from my
So this
year.
is for people just
lot.
that were wondering what on earth have I steered us into. For vegans who won't eat eggs or who can't eat eggs, you can make meringues instead of egg whites. You can use the water that's in the can with chickpeas.
It's, blows stuff like that.
I just
blows
wonder-
my
yeah,
mind.
and
Is
they
it called
just-
Aquafina or something like
that.
that? Yeah, I mean, me trying to be
Ben's going to
science.
tell me immediately. I can see him typing away. Yeah, and it behaves exactly like you can whip
Yeah.
it up and it stiffens to peaks.
Yeah.
Aquafaba.
Aquafina, so close.
You were very close.
So
I was
close.
useless. Now look, I don't want to squeeze us for too much time because you've got a recipe for us to try. So
Yeah.
for our Friday night dinner, for people out there who are thinking, I have no idea what I should be eating tonight, I'm assuming it's a recipe that's in this lovely book of yours. Yeah.
It is, yeah. So I love pancakes, but I love savoury pancakes. So this is a savoury pancake recipe. It uses, again, I use a half and half. I use buckwheat flour. It's almost like a galette as well, which I love. I take inspiration from different places. So I love that texture. But again, you can make literally a basic pancake recipe. If you've got some wholemeal flour, whack that in, put some chives through the pancake batter, and then cook off some mushrooms, red onion, loads of garlic, melt in some blue cheese. I use gorgonzola because I love it. Wilt in some spinach, few pine nuts, and then literally just fold it into the pancakes. You almost got like you filled pancakes. You can either do them straight away like that or layer them up, grate a load of parmesan over the top, and then stick them under the grill. So you've got that crispy pancake on top, the melted cheese, all that gorgeous blue cheese spinach
I'm
filling.
a huge blue cheese fan.
Me
Stick it in
too.
anything, and I'm
It's
salad
brilliant.
dressings.
I mean, cheese makes everything better anyway. So.
This sounds like a fantastic, and it's a recipe that's in the book,
It is indeed, yeah.
and the book is out now.
It is. It was out on the 1st of July.
Happy Cooking is the book. Candice, it's been such a pleasure. It's
been a joy.
Speaking to you. Quick last question: do you enjoy when you cook in the pub? Do you get a rush out of it?
I do, but we have chefs, and I will do silly things like go and decide that I'm going to make bread mid-service on a Saturday, and they're like, "Get out!"
Get out of the kitchen.
Or when I accidentally dropped a whole cake and it went into the pork for Sunday. So yeah, he wasn't massively impressed with that. I wasn't impressed. I dropped my cake, but he was probably less impressed.
Little bit of icing next to your pork
I mean,
scratching
it
there?
was cake batter.
Oh, Candice, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And also, thank you for speaking candidly about the mental health issues. I think it's so important for people in the public domain, in the public eye, to actually be as candid as you have been. So thank you for that. Thank you for your
welcome.
wonderful recipes. Thank you for our Friday night recipe. And thank you for being tremendous and coming all the way into the studio with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.